Hey there folks, this is Misadventurer here for a pretty unusual video. I wanted to make this video as a reaction to the recent news concerning that congressional hearing with the couple of guys who are sort of framing themselves or presenting themselves as sort of US military insiders who are coming forward now as whistleblowers to spill the beans about the existence of extraterrestrial spacecrafts and potentially alien corpses, biological material that the US government is aware of, has recovered from crash sites, and is kind of keeping under wraps in a giant conspiracy, which they're even making some allegations or sort of implications about the US government potentially disappearing people or killing people that are going to reveal this conspiracy to the public. Of course, they make these claims in a public sense in this congressional hearing, so make of that what you will. I guess we'll see if they get disappeared. But I wanted to make this video to share my thoughts about this topic, as I feel like there's a middle ground, measured, logic-driven way to think about this question that lets you come to a conclusion that's a bit more measured, while not devolving and kind of going to the extreme ends of the discourse that have really formed. And I think this really speaks to how public discourse on any matter works anymore, unfortunately, where people congregate on the extreme ends of either side of the spectrum of how people are discussing this topic. In this instance, the two extreme ends that people go to are, first of all, oh, there's no aliens at all, there's no way any aliens exist, or exist in the way that is being described, there's nothing going on here, these guys are just crazy attention seekers. That's the one extreme end a lot of people are defaulting to. The other one is, all of these guys' claims must be true. These guys are like national heroes for revealing this information. This is proving all of these conspiracies about aliens, and also, I think this proves other conspiracies about the US government hiding stuff, right? And what I've come to as I've thought about this, and some other people have also come to similar conclusions, I'm not the only one out there, of course, but what I've really come to with this issue is a more middle ground conclusion that I wanted to share with all of you. And the reason I want to share it with you, and I want to talk about this in the format of a video, right, is because I feel like this situation presents a really interesting example and sort of an interesting opportunity for us to all reflect on how we react to information like this that is, kind of surprising, kind of unexpected information that seems to really throw the normal expectations of things for a loop, and how people are so quick to come to these really kind of absolutist positions, and they're not open to hearing, a more middle ground approach, or they're not open to considering a logic-driven, reason-driven answer to what's going on. And I wanted to share my answer to what's going on in this video, because I feel like it's a compelling, it's a persuasive explanation that I want to share. I'm hoping that you guys feel similarly, that I've come to a reasonable conclusion here, but I want to hear in the comments, of course, what you all think about this whole situation. So, my thinking about this rests on basically the issue of just logical likelihood of different parts of this whole question. So, first and foremost, does alien life exist in the universe? Almost 100% for sure, yes. The chance that there are no other Earth-like planets, we already know about Earth-like planets in some places in our own galaxy, and there's so many other galaxies where we can't even really look closely enough to see for sure that there's no Earth-like planets. And even if there aren't a lot of other Earth-like planets, or if by sheer coincidence every other Earth-like planet doesn't have the development of life in the way that it developed on our planet, alien life doesn't necessarily have to be based around using oxygen, right? On Earth, as far as I'm aware, all life uses oxygen as its main resource, or uses it in the process of powering its cells, right? And oxygen is this really critical chemical in our air and in our water, right? Even water-based life like fish will breathe oxygen through their gills from the water. If you put a fish in non-oxygenated water, it just suffocates to death. Right? If you put a living creature that breathes air in an area that has no oxygen, it suffocates to death. If you put a tree somewhere that has no oxygen, it dies because it doesn't get the oxygen it needs. All life on our planet is oxygen dependent, right? And you could say, okay, well, what about a planet that's Earth-like that has no oxygen? Well, life could just develop and use a different chemical in the air or in the water to do the same process that oxygen does for our bodies, right? We're the descendants of these cells that, developed this way to use oxygen as a fuel source, and then that's the basis of how multicellular organisms developed. I'm not a scientist, I'm a lawyer, but even I know this from middle school biology class, right? This is not a super complicated idea. And so if you're talking about planets that don't have oxygen, in their planetary, chemical infrastructure, it's possible, but there's other chemicals that can be used like oxygen as an alternative, right? So it's possible to have non-oxygen consuming life forms. It's also possible, going even further, if you're talking about a non-Earth-like planet that just doesn't have an ecosystem that we would consider capable of supporting the kind of life that we're familiar with, well, there could be life that we're not familiar with, right? All life on our planet that I'm aware of is carbon-based. But is it possible for there to be non-carbon-based life, right? Life that doesn't have carbon as the fundamental building block of, our cell structure? That's possible, right? Could there be crystalline life? Could there be life that exists in the form of essentially radio waves? That's really hard for us to conceive of, but as far as I know, there's no way for us to provably demonstrate that that's not possible, right? And what we think of as intelligence is also, to some extent, biased by our existence as carbon-based, oxygen-breathing, intelligent life. So, it's possible that life exists out there in a form that we don't even recognize as living, right? And again, it's hard for us to really conceptualize what that might look like, because the whole point is that it's unfamiliar. It's something that we don't really have a basis to compare to. But it could exist out there. But even putting aside these kind of extreme, weird examples of completely unrecognizable living things, there's still all these Earth-like planets all over the place in our galaxy, and in other galaxies presumably, and the scale of space is so enormous, the scale of our universe is so enormous, that even though there's enormous distance between each star, and the number of Earth-like planets, it's not a common thing, it's a rare thing. Even with that noted, there are so many Earth-like planets in total, the chance that each separately happen to not develop even familiar carbon-based, even oxygen-breathing life seems pretty unlikely. So, is there life in the universe? Almost for sure, yes, in my mind. Mathematically, it's so hard to come to the conclusion that there just can't be life in the universe. Is there intelligent alien life that is of human intelligence or higher in the universe? Again, same logic here, almost for sure, yes. Is there intelligent human-like life, or human intelligent-like life, in our galaxy? Again, I think the answer is probably yes. But that doesn't mean necessarily that they're super advanced spacefaring, right? Our species, if you think about our species and our kind of planet and our planet's sort of life environment as one continuous line of evolution from single cell to where we are now, it's pretty old. It's billions of years old. But we think the universe is only a few more billion years old, so our planet's not as young, and our species and our kind of life progression isn't as young as we sometimes think, right, in the grand scale of things. There could be essentially the equivalent of super early, caveman level intelligent alien life on other planets that have no way to kind of scope us out or for us to notice them, right? We sometimes hear weird stuff in the background radio waves of our galaxy that we don't really know what to make of. Who knows if it's natural phenomenon? It could be aliens trying to contact us or just trying to send out contact. Our species sends out contact kind of to no one, just sort of to see if someone responds all the time, right? We're constantly trying to make contact with somebody out there. And we need to keep in mind as well the distances here. Even if there is a intelligent species that is of our similar level, they're near the beginning of their space age the way that we are, or they're a bit further ahead, their ability to even hear us takes so long for those radio waves to reach them. We may not get a response from them for a ton of time, right? So all of this noted, right? Because we do have the ability to kind of look around our own solar system at nearby solar systems and tell that there's not really Earth-like planets close to us, right? Or there's not clear signs of alien civilization close to us. All of that noted, though, the idea that there is intelligent alien life in our galaxy that is so far along that they've been aware of us and are close enough to have then had the time, given how it takes thousands of years, hundreds of thousands, millions of years to travel between stars at any speed that we can conceive of. Say that they have faster than light travel, or they have some way to cryogenically freeze themselves for long trips. That doesn't mean that they're moving fast then, so it still takes a long time. For them to have discovered life on our planet and then have had time to come to our planet at all is already creating timeline problems, right, for this whole situation. And so, even with my belief that there is intelligent alien life, possibly of human-level intelligence or higher, possibly even space age in their place in their development in our galaxy, that doesn't mean that they have, first of all, noticed us, second of all, have had the time to hear our messages that we've sent out only in the last the last 100 years, right? Radio waves. So they may not know that we've become civilized until long in the future, right? Given how long it takes for stuff to move through space. But then third of all, for them to have come, according to the arguments being made by these guys in Congress, for them to have come to our planet in manned ships, right, which is an enormous journey, which, let's remember, right, they're using resources to make this journey. The amount of power needed to get moving fast enough to get from wherever they are to our solar system in any amount of time is absolutely enormous. Unless there's somehow, they have some technology to eat a star, and then they are powered by the star to do faster than light travel to get to our solar system within their lifetimes. No idea how they're doing that, right? But according to the conspiracy side, aliens have come to our planet, and after all of the resources needed to make the journey, the time it takes, the investment needed to come to our planet, a planet of non-spacefaring monkeys who, if they took one look at us for any second, they can clearly tell we're completely consumed by internal conflict and factional disputes, and are clearly not on the path towards, space dominance anytime soon, right? First of all, what would their motive be to even come to our planet, to come look at us, right? We have astronomers on our planet right now that can pretty accurately measure things from a great distance away. If there is alien life anywhere near us, why don't they just look at us from afar, right? And in my mind, that's the most likely thing that is happening. But sending manned ships to our planet, you have to really think about the logic here. So, according to the conspiracy side, manned alien, not just like a mothership that comes, to hide by our planet to be a base of operation for this whole thing, but manned, essentially like alien, like single pilot crafts, right? Like we think of flying saucers or whatever the description would be, are coming into our atmosphere and flying around within visibility of these Air Force bases where people that are trained in this exact topic of crafts and flying are watching them and seeing them do weird things. This is a level of negligence that is so inconceivable. How could this species have space-age technology and development and be doing this goofy stuff, right? Can you imagine this? It's absurd that they would be coming to our planet and basically outing themselves immediately, right? I mean, if you're in the position of these aliens, you gotta think about them, right? These are intelligent creatures, according to the theory. They've got to be thinking intelligently. They don't want to be discovered, right? They want to look at us from afar and kind of scope us out. If they don't, because they haven't made open contact with us as far as we know, right? The notion that aliens have secretly made contact with governments and that governments are keeping it hidden, that conspiracy is so enormous and so consequential, it's completely illogical that it could be maintained. Do you think that if the US government had made contact with aliens at any point before or during President Donald Trump's presidency, he wouldn't tweet about it? Of course he would. He'd do a thumbs up picture of him standing with the alien, saying that the alien's going to support him for re-election. Of course they would. Someone, whether it was Trump, who of course famously didn't have the best impulse control, or anybody else in the whole government who would know about this. This is such an extreme, species course-changing bit of information someone would tell, right? And even these alleged whistleblowers who are saying that they're the real deal, that they're spilling the beans, they're still not first-hand witnesses. All of them said, we're second-hand witnesses, we've seen pictures, we've seen this evidence, but we're not first-hand witnesses. So they're not even claiming to be in the first-hand level of knowledge about this stuff. And putting aside their credibility just on its own face, we have to think about it logically. Are manned alien ships coming to our planet and flying around in sight of their subjects, right? If they're here, because in our own species, we've got uncontacted tribes. We have very strict rules about not coming into contact with these tribes, being at a great distance, respecting their own space. So the aliens were kind of in that same dynamic, right? They don't want to interact with us, they don't want to reveal themselves. So what do they have, like Glorbo the Rookie flying down after he drinks some alien gin to come do a joyride and he crashes the ship? Like, what the hell's going on, right? Did they send, like, the rookies on the trip to Earth? Like, these would be the most experienced, most veteran, most trusted alien, like, members of their team doing a mission like this to come interact with a developing species like ourselves. They wouldn't be flying around in atmosphere, doing weird tricks, getting spotted by everybody, and then crashing and dying. Like, that's an absurd thing for a species this advanced to be doing. And you might say, well, our species is pretty advanced and we do goofy stuff all the time, right? When you're talking about the issue of this, like, spacefaring civilization, what's more likely? That they've got this manned set of, like, essentially, like, single flyer jets, or whatever the equivalent would be, right? Coming into our atmosphere for no apparent reason, flying around and getting spotted by tons of people, with people taking videos, and there being, like, a public awakening to this information, and then crashing and dying for no apparent reason. Or you're this alien species that's advanced enough that you've got spaceflight, you've got advanced technology beyond what humans have, and you're aware of humans. You're going to watch them from like 100 trillion miles away with a giant telescope, and maybe you send unmanned ships to Earth. Unmanned, essentially drones to Earth. And that, I think, is what's going on here. I think, again, to review my kind of logical explanations here, is there life in the universe? Yes. Is there alien life in the universe? Almost certainly yes. Is there intelligent alien life that is in our galaxy? Almost certainly yes. Just mathematically, it's so likely that that's the case. Are they sending manned ships to our planet to fly around and crash? Are you kidding me? Of course not. There's no way that that's happening at any scale, right? Is it possible that it's ever happened? I have no way to verify yes or no. But is this constant thing, are all these reports of these UFOs and these abductions all true? There's no way that that's true. At the most, I think what's going on, if there is intelligent alien life, like, observing our planet, they're doing it from really far away where we can't see them, or they're doing it through unmanned drones, or the equivalent for them, like unmanned ships that are flying around. Maybe those things are being spotted. But even still, I think that there are going to continually be logical terrestrial explanations for all of these sightings of these ships. Sure, some of them right now with the videos that have been released are hard to explain, but hundreds of years ago, people saw things like ball lightning and had no explanation for it. We now know that ball lightning is a natural phenomenon that's uncommon, but it does happen. People said, this is complete evidence of aliens, the ball lightning stuff. And now we know, oh, there's actually a terrestrial explanation. There similarly are things about our current Earth and our current ecosystem that we just don't really completely fully understand as much as we think we do. There's always going to be some alternative explanation for all of these sightings, right? And the chance, and again, when I'm coming at this from isn't, oh, aliens wouldn't exist, this wouldn't happen because aliens don't exist. I think aliens do exist. But what I'm saying is you have to think about it like a lawyer. Think about it in terms of motive and logic. Would a species as advanced as having, like, solar system, or, multi-solar system spaceflight, something very advanced that we can't even really think of in our modern science, that they come to our planet and then they just fly around for no apparent reason and crash and die and get discovered by a bunch of goofballs at an Air Force base? Why on earth is that what would happen? They would be watching us from a great distance away in the same way that we are looking for life currently with our astronomers, right? If they're intelligent life, the way that our scientific community and our, like, astronomers and our alien enthusiast scientists are searching, that's what they'd be doing too, right? It wouldn't be that different, right? They would also be scanning the waves, the radio waves of space, looking for stuff that we're sending out. And if they're more advanced than we are, why would they make contact with us? Why would they come to our planet with any intention to interact with us, right? And that's sort of the ultimate final point I want to make about all this. A lot of the excitement about the alien congressional hearings is about the speculation of what do the aliens want with us, right? How about nothing? What would they want from us at all? If they're this advanced spacefaring race, right, what about the Earth would be of interest to them beyond scientific curiosity about our development as a species, right? If they're advanced enough to have the kind of spaceflight they would need to come to our planet from the distance they'd have to come from, right, there's nothing on our Earth that in theory they would need from us, right? And we often think about these alien scenarios from a very kind of fearful point of view, like, oh, they'd be coming to invade us or to Independence Day, like steal our resources. But our own species has a ton of diversity in terms of what motivates us to interact with the world around us, right? And there's no reason to think that an alien species that is of human intelligence or higher, that is in the space age, doesn't similarly have the capacity for a kind of basic empathy and curiosity about the world, right? People have often said that curiosity is a central feature of being an intelligent creature, and a alien species that's in their space age, they may just be genuinely scientifically curious in our development as a near space age intelligent species, and they're kind of just watching what happens on our planet, right? We've come pretty close a couple times to destroying our own species and planet with nuclear war. They may just be kind of waiting to see if we get around to doing that, right? They think it's possible, and many of us think it's also like a likelihood these days. And ultimately, I think that the most interesting thing about this whole alien discourse isn't what it says about the existence of aliens or how aliens exist in one way or another. What it actually, I think, is most interesting about this whole thing is what it says about us and about the way that we have this discourse. People immediately jump to these extreme opposite ends of the spectrum, these polarized positions, and they kind of square up to fight, because now all discourse anybody has about anything is a big fight that you have to have with two sides. And here, I feel like we need to remember the power of just thinking about it with some logic, right? These are intelligent creatures that are going to have their own motives. They may even have mixed, diverse motives within their society, as our society does, even within one society. Our species is split between many different civilizations that all have different interests, different internal conflicts. It could be the case that there's multiple different groups of aliens, maybe within the same species, maybe different species, that are all aware of us and all have different ideas about how they should interact with our planet and our existence. But at the end of the day, I think that one thing we shouldn't assume is that if there is intelligent life, that it's necessarily hostile to us, right? Why would it be? What would the point be? Like, science fiction has to come up with explanations to explain alien hostility. Oh, they're this warlike culture. Oh, they want to take our resources. Well, I've got news for you about the first one. In our own human civilization, really warlike cultures that were completely consumed with war and conquest always internally collapse, like, given enough time. That's just how it is. And in terms of this thing about needing resources, I don't know what resources could be in the Earth that are needed by a species advanced enough for the kind of spaceflight necessary to come to our planet in the first place. It's just hard to imagine, right? I don't think that the scientific consensus is that Earth has any particular resources that are really uncommon on other Earth-like planets or just on other planets, right? In fact, the rarest resources on Earth are resources from like meteors coming to the Earth, like resources from other places in space that are plentiful out in space. So at the end of the day, I think that when we have this discourse about aliens and talk about this alien congressional hearing, I think we need to remember that, logically speaking, we shouldn't be as freaked out as I think people get about this stuff. I think that it should be normalized to understand that alien life probably exists, and may even be aware that humanity exists, that our planet exists, and that we're kind of on the path that we're on. But at the end of the day, I think people are really fascinated by aliens because it gives them a chance to imagine this greater force that is completely unconnected to human affairs, that can have this outside influence on human affairs. But any alien civilization as advanced as the ones that would need to be that advanced to be watching us, to be kind of at a level above us, they're probably not going to interact with us. They're probably going to keep their distance and just kind of watch and see what happens. Because if they're that advanced, they know that there's no reason for them to get involved in our nation, in our society, in our world, whatever you want to call it. And at the end of the day, I think that the main takeaway that I've had thinking about this and that I want to share with all of you is that the topic of aliens and like what's going on with the aliens and the cover-up and all this stuff, I think, like many other conspiracy theories, it's a distraction from the fact that the problems with our society are very boring and very banal. There's not some exciting, giant government cover-up. Our government is so incompetent, they can barely even keep themselves running, let alone maintain a giant cover-up like that. The real problems in our society are really common, really unexciting human problems with like the human like psyche, right? Greed, arrogance, distrust. These are things that are super base level human emotion problems that also have the systemic role. And those are things that people should really be focused on. But those are not exciting, explosive, imagination grabbing issues. So people are drawn to these extravagant ideas like, aliens are going to conquer us and whatnot. And I think that if anything, the aliens that exist out there that might be observing our planet, watching us and kind of measuring us as they watch us, I think they're going to come to these same conclusions that I'm coming to, that our species is still not there and doesn't deserve to be contacted because we're still caught up in really low level, really basic conflict about these human, problems. And I mean, maybe they're even more universal than human, but these very basic psychological issues that we're still struggling to overcome as a species and as a civilization. So that's kind of my ultimate point, is that I think that we need to really think about this whole issue of aliens from the perspective of bringing it back to, human civilization, human, issues, and ultimately I think that anyone who really focuses on the alien stuff and really downplays the more kind of boring, everyday, commonplace problems with our society is ultimately, I think, doing us a disservice, right? Yeah, sure, this stuff is interesting, this stuff is fun, but talking about, this broader, out of this world thing that sounds so grandiose and important can be a distraction from the really seemingly unimportant everyday ways that our society is failing a lot of people and is not progressing as fast as it should, given our resources and given our grandeur that we believe that we have. So that's kind of ultimately my take on this. I want to hear what you all think in the comments down below. Perhaps I have some disagreements from some of you, so I'd love to hear that. I'm very open to being criticized for what I'm saying here and for my sort of logic of all this. But I just wanted to kind of share my thoughts because I'm not hearing a lot of people kind of talk about this in the way that I've just talked about it with all of you. And I wanted to put that opinion out there, make it part of the discourse, at least to my audience. Many of you are probably just baffled that this video exists at all and that I've spent this much time thinking about it, but I am a thinker of things. I am a speaker of my thoughts on many topics, and this is one of them. So thank you all so much for watching this unusual little video, and hopefully, please, I'm very curious to hear your thoughts in the comments about this whole topic and my conclusions. Let me know in the comments what you think, and there's no bad ideas in a brainstorm, so just go ahead and share what you think. If you think that everything the whistleblowers are saying is true, I'd love to hear that as well. I'm very open to having my preconceptions challenged, and if you've got evidence for some reason that proves things that I don't believe in, I'm open to hearing that as well. So just let me know in the comments what you think. Anyways, that's going to be it for this little video of mine. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.